On today's episode, I'll get into everything you need to know ahead of tonight's NHL Draft Lottery, and I'll also dish out a grade for Kevin Korchinski's 2024 report card.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. You can go and give me a follow on X at Jack Bushman2. Make sure to also go and check out my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey. That way you can get all of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Also, just a quick reminder to everyone watching this on YouTube right now to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you very much. If you're tuning in through an audio platform such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it may be, please make sure you're constantly downloading all of those latest episodes. You can rate and review the show as well, which I would greatly appreciate if you like what you're listening to on a daily basis. And last but certainly not least, got to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by Monopoly Go. Put on your game face and download Monopoly Go for free right now on Google Play or on the App Store. All right, good morning, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. Happy 2024 Draft Lottery Day, Blackhawks fans, as of course today we finally figure out where the Blackhawks will be selecting with their first of two picks here in the 2024 NHL Draft. By the way, just thought I'd add right off the top here, with the Vegas Golden Knights falling in Game 7 of the opening round against the Dallas Stars, we now know that the Chicago Blackhawks will officially be receiving the 20th overall selection from the Tampa Bay Lightning, stemming from that Brandon Hagel trade a couple of years back. They got number 19 in the 2023 draft, which turned into Oliver Moore. Now they'll be getting number 20 in return from Tampa Bay as well this year in the 2024 NHL draft. But of course, all eyes are on the Slacken for Macklin sweepstakes. We're finally going to figure out who's going to be the winner of that bad boy, and keeping my fingers crossed that May 7th, 2024 is going to treat us as well as May 8th, 2023 did when the hockey gods blessed us with getting none other than generational talent, Mr. Connor Bedard. The prize here tonight is, of course, Macklin Celebrini, a man who, according to Scott Powers of The Athletic, I was reading his article this morning, there's a firm belief that he's going to be in the NHL next season. And if he were to get selected by the Blackhawks, if they were to win the Slacken for Macklin sweepstakes, sounds like you could kind of pencil him in as the Blackhawks' number 2 center behind Connor Bedard next season. If that doesn't happen, if the Blackhawks do not win the draft lottery, first, let me just say they are still going to come away with a very talented player in this year's draft. They're guaranteed a top 4 selection, but also I did like to hear that it sounds like the Blackhawks are going to be targeting a second-line center in free agency this year if they do not win the Slacken for Macklin sweepstakes. And, that was kind of music to my ears, because when I went through my Blackhawks offensive outlook earlier last week, I mentioned one of the biggest needs this offseason is just adding another true top 6 piece to give Connor Bedard a little bit more help. So that was music to my ears to hear that. But yeah, top 4 pick guaranteed for the Chicago Blackhawks here tonight. We know they have a 13.5% chance at landing the top overall selection, the second best odds, trailing only the San Jose Sharks, who have a 25.5% chance of landing Celebrini. The Blackhawks have a 30.7% chance of picking third, a 41.7% chance of picking fourth, and a 14.1% chance of winding up with the second overall pick. And after the Sharks and the Blackhawks, the Anaheim Ducks have the third best odds. The Columbus Blue Jackets have the fourth. Montreal has the fifth. Arizona 6th. Ottawa 7th. And Seattle 8th. But it's going to be interesting to see if the Blackhawks can take this bad boy down for the second consecutive year. I know there would be so many tears from all the different NHL fans whining about, the Blackhawks, another top pick. It's so unfair. I would go full on Scott Tenorman, Eric Hartman, eating those tears off of their faces. It would be absolutely lovely. But like I said, if the Blackhawks don't wind up with the top overall pick, I really am hoping that they're going to be able to do that, because getting Macklin Celebrini I think gives the Blackhawks the best prospect pool in the NHL, gives them the brightest future of any team in the NHL, and really gives this franchise that 1-2 punch of the future like they had for Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews for all of those years. But if they don't wind up at number one, there are a lot of intriguing players down the rest of the board, and they're still going to come away with a super awesome prospect regardless of where they pick. But some other options, we know Macklin Celebrini is going to go number one, but after that, it is really wide open inside the top 10 in this year's draft. Some other options for guys that could go number two. Ivan Demidov is the one who's really being talked about. Unfortunate that he suffered a knee injury late in his season, but I think most people feel like in terms of pure talent, he's the second most skilled player in this year's draft behind Macklin Celebrini. Artem Levshunov is most people's top defenseman in this year's draft, the freshman out of Michigan State, a right-handed defenseman that could fit the Blackhawks' need. Will be interesting to see if they want to go that route. Caden Lindstrom is a big power forward type of mold. He's kind of been all over the place depending on which, scout or draft analyst you're asking. Some people have him as high as number 3. Some people have him a little bit further down around number 10. Cole Yzerman, the man who for a long time was believed to go number 2 behind Macklin Celebrini and actually give him the biggest battle for going number 1 overall. That does not seem to be the case anymore. And quite honestly, I'd be a little surprised if Cole Yzerman went in the top 3. Left-handed defenseman Sam Dickinson out of the London Knights is another option to go up high. And then Anton Silayev out of the KHL, a big 6'7" left-handed defenseman already playing pro hockey at 19 years of age. Those are kind of the consensus next best prospects in this year's draft, but there's no clear-cut second option, and there's no real clear-cut order for the rest of these guys, and it should make for a very intriguing first day of the NHL draft after Macklin Celebrini gets his name called. And I did want to be sure to mention, it's worth noting that if the Blackhawks do in fact win the draft lottery again here this season, they will not be allowed to move up via the draft lottery in the next 5 years, aka they're not going to be eligible to win the draft lottery again until at least 2028 if they win it here tonight, because you're not able to move up more than twice in a 5-year stretch. But honestly, that's not really a bad thing for the Chicago Blackhawks, knock on wood. But hopefully this is the last year that they're truly in contention for the number 1 overall pick. We know Kyle Davidson, Jamie Faulkner, this organization, they want to start taking steps in the right direction. So continuing to be in the race for the number 1 overall pick would be a sign that the plan hasn't gone as they structured it. Hopefully that won't be the case. So no harm, no foul really here. We're just focused on winning this one. If that happens, it'll be well worth the 5-year hiatus in which the Blackhawks can move up, because putting Macklin Celebrini and Connor Bedard together would be absolutely bonkers. And I don't know if I don't think I'd be going quite as crazy as I did when the Hawks won the draft lottery last year. But man, I'd still be like a kid in the candy store, like a kid waking up on Christmas, going crazy, looking at everything, not even really sure what to do with myself. Could be a very, very big day for the Chicago Blackhawks organization. But again, just a reminder, if they don't wind up with the number 1 overall pick, I know it's a theme in this year's draft, but it's not Celebrini or bust. In terms of who the number 1 overall pick is, yes, it's undoubtedly Macklin Celebrini, but there's a lot of talent going in the rest of this top 10 and in the first round in this year's draft. And we know the Blackhawks, once again, will be picking twice within the top 20. Hopefully they can get the number 1 overall pick for the second consecutive year as well. Add Macklin Celebrini to already one of the best prospect pools in the entire NHL. All right, there is everything you need to know ahead of tonight's draft lottery. Come on, hockey gods. Please bless us for the second year in a row. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans, still got to get into Kevin Korchinski's 2023-2024 report card. But first, I got to talk to you all about Monopoly Go. And we've all been there, either as a player or as a fan. It's halftime, and the score is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure if you or your team can pull out the win, but that's when you dig deep, lift your head up, and say to yourself, Time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime and with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. And play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, and charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and win tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard together. So get back out there, put on your game face, and go and download Monopoly Go right now for free on the App Store or Google Play. Segment 2, it's time to get into my fourth season. They used to be called season recaps. I changed them to report cards this year. It's time to get into my fourth report card here of the 2024 offseason. I've already dished out grades for Connor Bedard, Seth Jones, and Philip Kurashev's performances this season. If you haven't caught up on all of those episodes yet already, make sure to go and check out the Locked On Blackhawks YouTube channel. Find the 2024 report card playlist, and you can easily find all of the latest episodes there. I got everything time coded in the description, so you can quickly jump to that segment and find out which grade I gave for each of these respected players. Today, though, next up, we have 19-year-old defenseman, former 7th overall pick in the 2022 NHL Draft, Kevin Korchinski, who, like Connor Bedard, just wrapped up his first full-time season at the NHL level, and it was a bit of a roller coaster ride for Korchinski this year, but that wasn't anything surprising, given being a young 19-year-old coming in this year, an undersized, offensive-minded defenseman. Those are always very tough situations to be in. And also, this was a kid who was kind of just thrown into a top 4 role immediately right out of the gate. And I should also add, half of that was spent along with Jacob Megna, who, man, I have respect for Jacob Megna for what he did when he joined this Blackhawks organization and came in and, filled the spot that the Blackhawks needed really badly. He did a good job. But he's truthfully a 6th at best, probably more of a 7th defenseman in the NHL. And that was Kevin Korchinski's defensive partner for most of his rookie year, a guy who was a 7th defenseman playing on his offside. That was Kevin Korchinski's D partner for a majority of the year. So the struggles were kind of inevitable for this kid, right? Especially for the type of game that he played in junior, carrying the puck a lot, racking up a lot of assists, again, being known for more of his offensive side of the game. So yeah, he was going to be in over his head a little bit this season. Also on one of the worst teams, one of the worst defensive teams in all of hockey, trying to have to make major adjustments out there on the fly. It was never going to be easy for Kevin Korchinski. And then, of course, there was the debate going into this year. Will Kevin Korchinski make the NHL out of camp, or are the Blackhawks going to send him back to the OHL with Seattle? We knew the AHL was out of the picture because of Kevin Korchinski's age. He wasn't eligible to play in that league. And I do think ultimately the Hawks made the right decision here, because even though, again, like I said, it was a roller coaster ride for Korchinski this year, I don't think you can ever really argue against getting good experience at a young age. And yes, I'm sure it was exhausting, frustrating, all sorts of things for Kevin Korchinski this year to have to kind of struggle for the first time as a hockey player. I'm sure that was a little bit weird, a little bit intimidating, a little bit odd for him. But also, I think having those experiences as a 19-year-old kid are only going to bode well for him moving forward when he is a little bit more rugged, a little bit more physically and mentally mature, a little bit more developed. When he's 25, 26 years old, these experiences, and I've said it time and time again on the podcast, learning how to lose, I think something at a young age is really can be a motivating factor moving forward, and just understanding the pain of losing and wanting to never have that feeling again. I think there's something to be said about that. And I think there's something, about the Blackhawks young core that went on to do all those great things in the mid to early 2000s, because they kind of learned how to lose together. Most of those guys were there growing as one. And I feel like the Blackhawks are in a little bit of a same situation right now. So sure, it didn't go very great for Kevin Korchinski, but if/when he figures it out, this is only going to do him wonders, taking that next step in his career. And quite honestly, had he have been eligible, I think he would have been in Rockford for a good chunk of the season. That felt like a good spot for his game, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him down there for stretches next year. And I don't think Blackhawks fans should look at that as a demotion whatsoever, because again, if he was eligible, Kevin Korchinski would have been in the AHL this year. He just wasn't, so the Blackhawks kind of were stuck in between a rock and a hard place in terms of what they should have done. But ultimately, I do think they made the right decision, but they have to be very careful about how they handle Kevin Korchinski these next couple of years, because we've seen defensemen like this in the past. Ian Mitchell, Nicholas Beaudin, never wind up panning out. And I think Kevin Korchinski is undoubtedly more talented than both of those guys, but there's also no denying he plays a little bit of a similar game, and I think that scarred some Blackhawks fans about the potential development of Kevin Korchinski, when I don't think that should personally be the case. He's much more talented than those two guys ever were. We just have a little bit of scar tissue because the Blackhawks have not developed, especially undersized defensemen, offensive-minded guys, very well over the past decade. So it's very important to handle Kevin Korchinski with care here this offseason. I think it's really crucial for the organization. But getting into the numbers for KK this season, played in 76 games as a rookie for the Blackhawks, rather impressive. Didn't miss any time with injury. The only games that he missed was, unfortunately, due to the passing of his father early on in the campaign, which is another kind of wrench into the plans for Kevin Korchinski. I'm sure that didn't make his first NHL campaign go any easier. But in those 76 games, he tallied 5 goals and 10 assists for 15 points. Those 5 goals were second among all Blackhawks defensemen, trailing only Seth Jones. 20 penalty minutes in his rookie year for Kevin Korchinski. Minus 39 plus minus. I've talked about that already with Bedard and Kurashev. Not going to go on that tangent for too long here. No power play goals out of Kevin Korchinski this year. That was what concerned me a little bit. I knew Seth Jones was going to get the lion's share of the quarterback minutes on the Blackhawks power play, and quite honestly, I don't know if he's deserving of that role moving forward, because he just hasn't been good enough on the power play. But we're talking about Kevin Korchinski here. Whenever he got an opportunity on the Blackhawks power play this season, I felt like that was going to be the best natural spot for him, where he could play to his strengths, play to his offensive abilities, be a good passer from up near the blue line. And it just felt like he was a little bit tight whenever he got those situations. I felt like he was thinking too much. He was like really forcing the drop pass and made several bad turnovers on the man advantage. And I think even a couple of times this year, when he did get a chance on the power play, he played so poorly in that opportunity that Coach Luke Richardson immediately pulled him off of the man advantage and put Seth Jones back out there. So that's one area I would really like to see Kevin Korchinski just kind of get more comfortable with next year, because I thought that was an area that he was going to have success at this year, maybe being the defenseman running the second power play unit. Not a whole lot of success out of him in that area, which was probably the most surprising thing to me this season. Shot 5.4% in total. Kind of is what it is for a 19-year-old defenseman. Would like to see him, again, just be a little bit more aggressive and fire the puck on net. Trust his instincts a little bit more is kind of my biggest takeaway from Kevin Korchinski. Did average 19 minutes and 37 seconds of time on ice, which, I mean, that's a top 4 role immediately as a 19-year-old in the NHL. He got thwarted into that position, sink or swim type of vibes here for Korchinski. Yeah, it was a struggle for him, but I do believe that is going to bode well for him moving forward. Not sure if that's necessarily the role they want out of him at the NHL level next year, unless he has a much more reliable D partner on across from him. Added in 82 blocks in 76 games. I don't ever expect that to be his forte, but I like seeing that he's willing to pitch in. Here are some concerning stats as well. Only 23 takeaways for Korchinski in 76 games compared to 72 giveaways. So he was almost averaging a giveaway every night. And in the NHL, when giveaways, sometimes they don't get counted properly, it's a little bit of a weird stat out there, right? And it's also like it's like a judgment stat a little bit sometimes, because what's a giveaway, what isn't, it kind of depends on the guy who's up in the booth tracking the stats that night. But for Korchinski to have this big of a gap between the amount of takeaways and giveaways that he had, I know defensemen usually have more giveaways because they're the guys skating the puck out of the offense, out of the defensive zone, or making that first stretch pass. They're susceptible to giveaways. But to have the differential be this large shows you that Kevin Korchinski needs to tighten things up when the puck's on his stick, and also clearly needs to get stronger That was a real big takeaway for me this season. Getting into the analytics here for KK, 47.2 Corsi for percentage this year, better than I thought it was going to be, quite honestly. Was on the ice for 47 goals for to 77 goals against at even strength, along with a 90.2 on ice save percentage, which is actually pretty good considering Peter Mrazek's save percentage was .907 this year. Arvid Soderblom's was well below 900. Probably one of the better on ice save percentages for the Blackhawks this year, which makes me think about why he was on the ice for 30 more goals against than he was goals for. I envision that because he wasn't getting probably as much of the offensive looks as Seth Jones was, while still having a pretty meaningful role at almost 20 minutes per game on the defensive side of things. And I feel like Jones and Vlasic were probably playing with the big guns a little bit more, and at least in terms of the offensive zone starts. I feel like Korchinski probably didn't play with those guys as much as Seth Jones did, especially when he's playing nearly half the game. So at least that's my kind of perspective on it. But breaking down the good for Kevin Korchinski this year, I think the most noticeable attribute of his has to be the wheels. He clearly can absolutely fly out there. He can skate the puck out of harm's way, out of the defensive zone, into the offensive zone. I would, though, like to see him get a little bit more confident in his ability to do that. But his skating ability, his acceleration, the way that he could just kind of be a rover back there, like he can cut down on so much ice in such a hurry and get himself back in transition to avoid an odd man rush. He can go and jump up into an odd man rush on the other side of things. And that's actually one area that I think he got better at as the season wore on. He understood things a little bit better out there, jumping up into rushes and also pinching into the offensive zone. I thought he was much better at that in the second half of the regular season comparatively to the first half. And then he just has natural offensive-minded instincts. I think those are going to flourish more and more and more as he continues to mature. And I also thought he finished out the year on a high note. He finished out the year strong, had a couple of goals in those last couple of weeks, chipped in for some assists as well, winds up being the second goal-scoring defenseman for the Blackhawks this year. So there were still some good for Kevin Korchinski, even though there were a lot of hiccups along the way. In terms of the bad, first and foremost, he definitely needs work in his own zone. He got bullied a little bit, quite honestly, this year because of his lack of size, his lack of ruggedness. Going into the corners and retrieving the puck was tough. He'd get out-positioned there, and he'd also get beat up a little bit in front of the net. I mean, how many times did we see the Blackhawks give up far too easy goals this year with the opposing player basically just going to the front of the net and putting their stick down? The Blackhawks had a lot of blown coverages. They weren't gritty enough in front of their own goaltender. Those are things that they're going to have to shore up as a unit here this offseason, and also things Kevin Korchinski absolutely is going to have to work on, along with trusting his instincts a little bit more. I know this kid is a talented hockey player, and I have not seen many with better wheels than what he has, but he definitely needs to get stronger. He needs to get a little bit tougher. And I also think he just needs to believe in himself a little bit more, man. Become a staple of the second power play unit, because getting those prime opportunities last year, he just kind of looked like a deer in the headlights a little bit. I think he needs to trust in himself a little bit more, believe in himself, and just make confident and aggressive, assertive plays out there. I didn't see that very often out of Kevin Korchinski this year. Working on consistency, I think, is something that's going to be big for him. And also just working on becoming tougher to take the puck away from. Just be a little bit stronger on his skates, a little bit stronger on his stick. All things that you kind of expect to say to an undersized 19-year-old defenseman who just played his rookie year in the NHL. It was going to be a tough situation for Kevin Korchinski regardless. As far as what grade I give him, this one was a little bit tough. I still believe in his future brightly. It was a tough year for him. I'm going to give him a B- for his performance this season. 47% of the voters on X voted for B. The next most popular option was C, in which 44% of the voters said more, though I was impressed. More of the voters voted for A than they did D/F for Kevin Korchinski. I thought he was going to get a couple of those bad boys on X. By the way, make sure to go and follow Talkin' Hockey on X so you can cast your vote whenever I dish out these polls, and you can give your input on X as to what grade a certain player deserves for their performance this season. If you didn't go and vote on X for Kevin Korchinski's grade, make sure to go and drop your thoughts on this matter down below in the comment section. Let me know right now what grade you would give Blackhawks young defenseman Kevin Korchinski for his performance this season. And also go and let me know if the Blackhawks don't wind up with the first overall selection, who you would like to see them pick at number 2. All right, there is young defenseman Kevin Korchinski's 2024 report card. I don't know why the camera just kind of went off of focus there. Hopefully it'll come back here in a second. I apologize, everyone. There it is. Coming up in just a moment, I still have to get into Scott Wheeler's final 25 prospects before I wrap up today's show. But first, I got to talk to you all about the fine folks over at FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL. Baseball season is also in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. And right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. Yes, you heard me right. $150 of bonus bets, win or lose. And you can use these bonuses to bet on everything from slap shots throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs to home runs across all the major league ballparks and even slam dunks on the way to the NBA championship, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Go and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon right now and make your first bet an automatic win. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon for new customers to get $150 worth of bonus bets. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, to everyone watching this on YouTube right now, smash the like button, comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And also, make sure to go and check out the new Locked On Sports Today, because Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On. Plus, our national shows covering every single league. So make sure to go and check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and to subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Segment 3, before I let you all go and enjoy the rest of your days, I did want to be sure to get into Scott Wheeler's final top prospects ranking ahead of today's NHL Draft Lottery and also the World Championship beginning later this week on Friday in the Czech Republic. Just think, given today's the draft lottery, Scott Wheeler posted his final prospect rankings yesterday. I feel like it's only a given that I should break all of these down because we know the Blackhawks will be picking twice within the top 20 selections here again this year. And by the way, World Championship starting on Friday. Connor Bedard officially confirmed for Team Canada. We know Alex Vlasic and Seth Jones are going to be playing for the red, white, and blue. Peter Mrazek has been announced for the host country, Czechia, and Philip Kurashev is going to be playing for Switzerland. However, with the Rockford Ice Hogs getting bounced out of the first round of the Calder Cup playoffs, unfortunately for the third year in a row, there is a chance we could see Lukas Reichel suiting up for Team Germany now at the World Championship. He's represented Germany numerous times throughout his career, has played in the World Championship in the past. It was announced that he was going to be playing for Rockford in the playoffs instead of playing in the World Championship. I assume that was probably a decision made by the Blackhawks organization, but now, unfortunately, that Ice Hogs have been knocked out. That allows an avenue for Reichel to possibly go and play for Team Germany here in this tournament. So I'll make sure to keep you all updated on that front if Lukas Reichel does get added to the German roster before the tournament kicks off on Friday. Anyways, though, getting into Scott Wheeler's final prospect ranking ahead of today's draft lottery. No surprise, Macklin Celebrini comes in at number 1, but like I said earlier, numbers 2 through 10 kind of depends on who you're asking. Everyone has a different opinion. Everyone has the rest of these prospects ranked and sorted differently, and that's what's going to make it such an intriguing year here this season. Macklin Celebrini comes in at number 1. Kind of no surprise to me here at number 2. Wheeler had Ivan Demidov, even coming off of that knee injury. Like I said, I think he's pretty clearly the second most talented player, but there are always the Russia concerns, which quite honestly aren't as true today as they were probably 10 years ago. Most of these kids nowadays want to come over and play in the biggest league. That is the NHL. That was kind of a thing of the past. Not to say that it can't happen, but it's just not as likely as it was, a decade ago. I fully expect Ivan Demidov to come over to the NHL. He comes in at number 2 in Wheeler's list. At number 3, Artem Levshunov. As I said, most folks' top defenseman in this year's draft. Interestingly enough, though, Wheeler has Zeev Buim at number 4, and Zeev, man, I would give it all for Zeev if the Blackhawks needed a left-handed defenseman. He is a game breaker, and I'm really interested to see how high he ends up going. Would not be surprised whatsoever if someone bites on him in the top 5 because he's just so talented for his age. Zane Parekh, a right-handed defenseman, along with Artem Levshunov, comes in at number 5. And here's the question for the Blackhawks. If they don't wind up at number 1, are they going to want to take a defenseman if they fit at number 2 or number 3? Are they going to want to take Levshunov? Are they going to want to take Zane Parekh? Or do they want to go and add to their forward group? Do they want to add Ivan Demidov if they wind up at number 2? Or if they wind up at 3 and Demidov's off the board, are they going to go with Cole Yzerman, who comes in at number 6 for Scott Wheeler's ranking? Are they going to go with Berkeley Catton, who comes in at number 8? I don't see them going with Sam Dickinson, who comes in between them at number 7, left-handed defenseman from the London Knights. I just don't think that's a fit for the Blackhawks. So if they wind up at 2 or 3, it's going to be interesting to see if they want to go with the defenseman there or if they want to potentially wait till the 20th pick is on the clock, or if they go and add a defenseman first and go and round things out with their forward group a little bit later. Coming in at number 9, Konsta Helenius played for Finland at the World Juniors this past year. He's at number 9. According to Scott Wheeler, at number 10 is Anton Silayev. Like I said, big 6'7" left-handed defenseman already playing over in the KHL. Caden Lindstrom comes in at number 11 for Scott Wheeler, and that's really curious to me. I have Caden Lindstrom much closer to my top 5, and I really do think he would be an intriguing power forward option for the Blackhawks prospect pool. They kind of need some size there, so personally, I like Caden Lindstrom. Tij Aginla comes in at number 12. Carter Yakimchuk, another right-handed defenseman, comes in at number 13. Michael Branzeg Nygaard comes in at number 14 from Norway. Michael Hagee comes in at 15. Bennett Sinecki comes in at 16. Trevor Connolly at 17. Emil Hemming at 18. Liam Greentree at 19. Tarek Periskak at number 20. And here's where things get interesting. Adam Juracek, who suffered a knee injury, missed a majority of the season. He comes in at number 21, according to Scott Wheeler. Would the Blackhawks be willing to take a gamble on someone like Adam Juracek as a right-handed defenseman at number 20 if he is still available? Igor Chernyshov comes in at number 22. Aaron Kiviharju comes in at number 23. Sasha Boive comes in at 24. And then another right-handed defenseman, and Henry Muse, comes in at number 25. I think Juracek and Muse are two guys to really watch there later on in the first round if the Blackhawks don't go with the right-handed defenseman with their first selection. But there is Scott Wheeler's top 25. A lot of interesting rankings here. To me, the one that stands out is Caden Lindstrom being behind guys like Silayev, Konsta Helenius, Sam Dickinson, Zane Parekh. That's certainly curious. And the big question for the Blackhawks, again, are they going to take a forward first? Are they going to take a defenseman first? What are kind of their priorities in this year's NHL draft? We're a month away from finding that out, but hopefully none of this will matter because the Blackhawks will be taking Macklin Celebrini with the number 1 overall pick in a month's time. Please, hockey gods, let us be blessed for the second consecutive year. Let May 7th, 2024 treat us as well as May 8th, 2023 did. Everyone out there, enjoy Draft Lottery Day, Blackhawks fans. 5:30 p.m. Central Time start time, not puck drop. Make sure you don't miss it. You're not going to want to be late. See if the Blackhawks can win the Draft Lottery for the second consecutive year. All right, that is going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for tuning into the show. Be sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free right now, wherever you may be listening to your podcasts, and to go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. That way you can get the latest episode as soon as it gets uploaded each and every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Give me a follow on X at Jack Bushman2. Make sure to also go and check out my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Until next episode, everyone, enjoy the rest of your days. Let's go, Hawks. Let's win that draft lottery. I'll see you tomorrow on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.